Hello everyone, and welcome to what should hopefully be the first of many DBC deck profiles. Deck I used in the Gaia the Fierce Knight versus Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth DBC. That went out on April 13th, 2018. Keep in mind that it is a format that was around time. Hopefully, the videos will be a good look into the design process of how a DBC deck is made, so that way if you are ever on one, you can understand how someone who's been on several of them and understands how to make a deck. So we'll go over the main deck first, and the extra deck, and then start off on our monster lineup. We have 3 copies of Black Dragon, 2 copies of Gaia the Fierce Knight, 1 copy of Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, 1 copy of Masterpiece King, 3 copies of Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight, 2 copies of Lord Gaia the Fierce Knight, 3 copies of Arisen Gaia the Fierce Knight, copies of Magic, 2 copies of Envoy of Chaos, and 1 copy of Swamp. Spell Traps, 3 copies of Polymerization, 1 copy of Monster Reborn, 2 copies of Prohibition, copies of Spear Strike, 2 copies of Magnum Shield, 3 copies of Waboku, 2 copies of Fairy Box, 2 copies of Statue of Anguish Pattern, and 2 copies of Venus Chain. As you can kind of guess, this deck is designed to fusion. I'll talk about it extensively, because that duel that Meek and myself were trying to emulate was the first time we saw a fusion summon in the anime, outside of, I think, maybe what might have happened in Season 0, but that was before the anime was about the card game specific. As such, I try to do that, but Gaias are also really good, or really good is probably an exaggeration, but they're alright at spamming out rank 7s. So I made sure to give myself options on that front. As such, we play 2 copies of Red Eye Slash Dragon, 2 copies of Sky Galloping Gaia, 2 copies of Red Eye's Flare Metal Dragon, 2 copies of number 11 Big Eye, 1 copy of number 28 Titanic Moth, 1 copy of number 42 Galaxy Tomahawk. Then for rank 4s, we have 1 copy of Dark Rebellion Ixie Dragon, 1 copy of Castel the Skyblasting Musk, and 1 copy of Tornado Dragon. For links, which we have as a sort of formality, we have 1 copy of Gaia Saber the Lightning Shadow, and 1 copy of Gold, 2 Tales of the So we fusion summon. Alright, what are our materials for that? Well, for making Sky Galloping, we can use any Gaia the Fierce Knight monster, hopefully one that isn't particularly useful outside of that, like Gaia the Fierce Knight or Arisen Gaia. Conditions are kind of hard to meet sometimes. And a dragon. Hopefully Keeper of Draconic Magic, because they search the fusion spell, aren't as big as Red Eye. Also, to make Red Eye Slash, that's probably the better play if you're going. But the option is still there. Maybe you are in a situation that Sky Galloping, which does happen occasionally. As for how you make your rank 7s, Lord Gaia is a Cyber Dragon that special summons himself and normal summons himself. And Charging Gaia is normal summons. So if you have 2 turns with those on board, you can make, if your opponent has something big, like, say, Moth, you can Big Eye it, make it for your own, and then beat them to death with their own monster. If they use a lot of effects, you can flare metal them. Low life points. Metal them and watch them burn themselves, because they're playing the game. Titanic Moth is good for that little bit of extra damage if you can't beat over something. 1200 damage from direct attack. Galaxy Tomahawk just summons absolute buttloads of tokens that Gaia Saber Lightning Shadow is big and has no other effects, but is also technically a Gaia card, not usable for any of the things we use 4. And these 3 are just a condensed rank 4 toolbox. If you can make Dark Rebellion, he can technically beat over anything as long as he can target it. Tornado Dragon can destroy any spell trap. Castell can bounce anything without targeting. Actually, no, it does target. But Castell can shove it into the deck and then usually don't have to worry. As for the cards that aren't as obvious why they're in here, Prohibition is designed exclusively to deal with 2 cards that I thought would be a very big problem for me. Ultimately Metamorphosed Insect Queen and Parasite Paranoid. When you're making a DBC deck, you have to balance using your deck to the fullest and then stopping your opponent from using their deck to the fullest. As such, if you find a card that doesn't hinder your deck and is a viable option for your deck, probably attempt to play it if it messes with you. Prohibition is a good one. It has some synergy with some aspects of my deck, so I decided to play it. Spiral Spear Strike is obvious. It gives Gaia's a lot of consistency boosting, because if you attack defense position monster with Galloping Gaia Dragon Champion, who changed the battle positions, so even attack position not be, and you deal piercing damage, you draw 2 and discard 1. And if you have 2 of them on the field, you draw 2, discard 1, then draw 2 more and discard. Effectively turns him into a slightly better Uja. Magnum Shield, I understood that Great Moth and Metamorphosed Insect Queen were bigger than any of my Gaias individually. But since they're all warriors, I can use Magnum Shield on them and turn Charging Gaia if he's just been straight normal summoned into a 4K beater. And then everyone else at 4,400. Which is effectively enough to beat. Waboku is a very specific choice because Insect Queen Retrain doesn't allow insect monsters to be targeted while she's on the field. So you can't use targeting battle traps. For that reason I don't run Mirror Shield. Waboku is chainable to an MST. I know any opponent who goes against me on the DBC now packing Twin Twisters because they know I win without. They know I win if they don't. So Waboku is chainable to that. Fairy Box also doesn't target and changes their attack to 0, which is a pseudo Magic Cylinder effect. And this card is probably going to see my auxiliary Magic Cylinder a lot more often in things that can't be targeted. That becomes more. It's unfortunate that it does have to happen on a coin toss, but if it didn't, it'd be broke because it's a continuous trap. Statue of Anguish pattern is here to facilitate rank 7 play. I never saw him during the DBC, and I never saw him during testing. I saw him during testing once, and I saw both of them in the same hand. I wasn't able to make a rank 7 with them because it was a bad play, but they are still 2,500 walls. Venus Chain, while it does target, is some good effect negation. So if I can get this off on Insect Queen before he manages to get something else on board with it, I can deal with it. I think. Actually remember. But if he has a Great Moth or something on board without an Insect Queen, I can stop it from it. I can also stop Doomdozer from it. Both of those are threats to mine. Envoy of Chaos, I forgot to mention him, is a pseudo-honest for Gaia the Fierce Knight and Blackluster Soldier. He increases their attack by 1,500, and any opponent's monster who battles it is returned to their original attack. Don't think comes up often, doesn't. But there's that one out of whatever time. Like, for example, in my testing, somebody made Giganticastle against me. Which is this dumb level 9 synchro, and it's my absolute favorite. But it gets stronger the more synchro material you use. Envoy of Chaos, so he would be significantly bigger than even Blackluster Soldier, with just a couple materials. Envoy of Chaos would turn him to his original attack, which is 1,000, I think it might be 2,900, and Blackluster soldiers just beat over him. King of the Swamp is here to help search polymerization along with electronic magic, so at this point we have 7 copies of polymerization, even if we do have to do some other. And now to the side deck. We have an extra copy of Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, if I'm not seeing it enough, or I'm having the materials in the... which does happen. It is a significantly more... we have more darks than we have lights, but we have enough lights to be valid. We get a Charging Gaia and a... really, any of the others, Keeper Draconic Magic, Envoy of Chaos, Arisen Gaia, a Red Eyes, in the grave. It's useful to keep them around. 2 extra copies of Masterpiece. While I was asked to take him out in the beginning, he does have a significant amount of synergy with it. Earlier builds relied more on Exchange of Night and Day than this one does, but they've all relied on Spiral Spears, which is a continuous. Couple that with specific tech choices like Prohibition and like Fairy Box and Fiendish Chain and Statue of Anguish pattern, and it makes sense why he's here. Has enough fodder to go. You can make him immune to monster effects and spell effects. You can make him immune to monsters and spells, and since I'm pretty much the only person who runs battle traps anymore, that makes Masterpiece reckoned with, but most of the time you make him. Cyber Dinosaur is here to facilitate rank 7 plays and be a big beater if I need him. Never cited him in because I never... Ancient Rules is sort of a holdover from older builds that need summon Skull in order to make Archfiend Black Skull Dragon. So you need a way to get some of the big normal monsters out of your hand if you have them, and Ancient Rules is a good way to do that. Probably the best way to do that. However, I realized I was seeing a lot of pieces that didn't work together often. Since this is a Gaia deck, I would most of the time, if I saw like Summon Skull, I would see a bunch of Gaias and no Red Eyes. Or if I saw a Red Eyes, I saw it with a bunch of Gaias and no Summon Skull, which isn't as bad of a problem because I can use it to summon Red Eyes Flash Dragon. Double Summon is here to give myself an extra normal summon, if I need that. I never ended up citing it in because it's just not something you end up thinking about. And it sometimes helps, but a lot of the times it doesn't. Clogs more than... I probably should have switched this out for something more useful. Twin Twisters is here as spell trap removal. Pretty much the best spell trap removal we've got in the game. And the discard cost isn't as big of a deal when you have something like Blackluster Soldier that does make use of things of the grave. Keeper of Draconic Magic also has more often than not want to discard Red Eyes Dragon if you... Taken Accusation is a spicy side deck choice, given to me by one Wind Shadow 64. Since I'm a fusion deck, I go minus a lot. I put a lot of resources into making things that aren't even necessarily very big. My opponent has more total cards in their hand on their side of the field than I do. I can target one face-up card on the field, and neither player can activate cards with that name or their effects for the rest of the duel. What that means, I can hit a Parasite Paranoid. I don't have to worry about it for the rest of the game. I can hit a Great Moth, and he can't summon that. Insect Queen, if it can be targeted. I don't actually know if it can. It's been a while. And I wouldn't have to worry about it, and that would be absolutely great. Upholstery Evacuation Device is just generic bounce trap. I figured it would be particularly useful against Great Moths, since as soon as he summons it and I bounce it, he has no method of summoning. As for specific cards in the extra deck, Red Eyes Flare Metal is just a good thing to sit on and watch your opponent burn themselves to death. Big Eye can steal something, which you can use as link material to make Gaia Saber if you're into that. Or you can steal his Great Moth and beat him to death. Titanic Moth is a sort of like, hey, my Moth's better. Attacks directly, it can win games, it's kind of actually useful for that, and that's why I considered it over just being like, hey, you know, I win more. It also has some cool artwork, so at least that's a plus. but my Moth is better than his. Galaxy Tomahawk is not something this deck makes often, but if you do make it, you're almost certainly going to have an empty field besides it. So you summon 5 tokens, you make a Gaia Saber using Tomahawk and 2 of the tokens, and then watch the rest die because you don't have a method to use. Plus you can, actually, you can use them as tribute material, so if you just have 2 Gaias already on the Galaxy Tomahawk, make a Gaia Saber, and then tribute summon a Risen Gaia or something, I don't know. And then these 3 make up my Contend Strength 4. Rebellion, just anything effectively. Tornado Dragon can pop a spell trap if I need it, and Castell can remove problems. Don't make these too much because you only have 5 total rank 4s, and one of them you want as fusion material, and the other one you want in your hand always. But if there was ever a pinch in which you absolutely needed to make them, you could. Gaia Saber is here because he's in theme, and I felt like this deck needed a Link monster, even if I never used it. And he sold Two Tales of the Noble Knights is just the warrior Link monster. Not particularly great, but it's a thing it can make. That's the deck profile. I hope to make more of these for all the DBCs I'm in. Can't guarantee that will happen. Who knows? Let me know how I did. Sorry if this was rough, but it is my watching. Bye.